Hey, Audrey, did you hear about the ongoing series of killings in our neighborhood?
No? What happened?
Well, according to the rumors I've picked up from a few people, there's a hideous human walking by the streets eyeing on its victims and following them around for about an hour before showing himself and going for the kill.
How were the people killed?
Nobody knows for sure because all that is known is that the victims are left almost unpierced, but upon further investigation, they were robbed of all their inner organs, even though their bodies were left without cuts or wounds.
That sounds really creepy. Hopefully, I don't meet this killer on my way home.
Don't worry, Audrey. The police managed to find the pattern in how the killer is behaving. He only kills when the moon shines bright above the sky, means no clouds blocking its view. However, even so, you shouldn't only rely on that because he has already killed people when the moon was just seen bleak visible. But those are only a few rare cases, and in those cases, the victims weren't robbed of all their organs.
Please stop with this story. It's obviously fake, or else it would have been made the news a long time ago. Come on, man. Our next class starts soon. We'll be fine. It's just an imaginary story some kids made up to scare people.
If you say so, Audrey, but don't tell me I didn't warn you.
The rest of the classes we had on that day were normal, and so I tried to forget about the story, but on the next morning. As I walked on the school grounds the next morning, I realized that something was off. There was a huge crowd in the hallway. My curiosity took over, and I pushed myself into the center of the crowd. Once I managed to get into the circle, my world suddenly broke down. My one and only best friend was lying on the ground. Surrounding her were doctors shaking their heads with apologetic eyes, announcing her death time.
Everyone, stand back and go home for today.
Shouted one of the teachers to the students. I was too paralyzed to move at all. Yesterday, she was just by my side talking about this silly killing series story. And today, she was lying dead in front of me. I simply couldn't apprehend what was going on and started screaming in agony and pain with eyes full of tears. One of the teachers took me to the side and tried to comfort me, but I couldn't understand anything they were talking about. Eventually, my parents came and brought me home, but I will never forget what I have witnessed today and the feeling of losing something you once dearly cared for. A week after the death of my friend, the funeral was held. I walked past the people to hold a speech about how much of a great friend she was to me. Someone handed me a letter and whispered to my ears that something was strange about the death of my friend, and that it was definitely related to something we talked about the day before she died. I was in shock and wanted to ask him how he knew that, but as soon as I turned back, there was nobody standing behind me. A shiver went down my spine as I was holding the letter in my trembling hands and with an expression of horror. But I didn't want to tell anyone what happened just then, or else they would call me crazy. So I pretended nothing happened until I went home. Upon arriving home, I noticed that something felt off. My parents, who were usually always at home, were nowhere to be seen. But I didn't think too much about it. I went straight upstairs to my room and locked the doors just to be safe. Falling onto my bed, I gathered enough courage and opened the mysterious letter I received at the funeral. The content left me at disbelief. The letter described what really happened on that night, stating that she was for some apparent reason looking up at the moon at that night until she heard something whispering into her ear. In shock, she turned around, but there was no one. Slowly but surely, the moon shone brighter and brighter as the night continued and she tried to walk back home. But every time she tried, she ended up on the school grounds again. She wasn't able to leave, as if she was walking in circles. She searched for her phone in her pockets, but slowly started panicking as she reached into her empty pockets. Her lungs felt deflated as she was never able to shout out and scream for help. Nearing midnight, she felt agonizing pain throughout her entire body. It felt like as if her inner organs were being crushed and destroyed, even though she hasn't been harmed in any physical way, beside the moon shining bright upon her. Once she started coughing up blood, she realized that it was already too late and that the man responsible for the killing series in the neighborhood was on the chase for more prey, and she was unfortunate enough to become his next victim. As her vision slowly blurred away, she heard a whisper in her ears saying that everything will be alright. Audrey was too shocked to realize that she had been walking subconsciously outside of her house, into a dark alley near her house while reading, until the sun slowly went down. She felt too paralyzed to even react to the moon slowly rising above the sky until it was almost at its peak. Once she shook off her dizziness, she felt an immeasurable pain in her stomach. She cried and yelled out for help, but there was no one anywhere near who could have heard her. As she screamed and screamed, she heard a whisper in her ear. Her vision vanished away. The voice wasn't that of a man, but rather of her friend whom she found dead on the school grounds. She said,
Thank you for your kindness and care.